breathe upon the word the breath of life. Let your word come with clarity. Father, we pray that no one hearing your word shall be thick to understand, but let your word penetrate through to the innermost being. Help your people to be aware of the times we are in, for the days are evil. Have your way, Lord. Thank you for answering our prayer. In Yeshua Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. On Thursday we began a two-part message to you that fitted into what we are teaching to the body of Jesus across the world at this time. Thursday I share with you how certain developments, those of you who were here and those across the world, if you remember what we said on Thursday, the Bible talks about the sons of Issachar, that the greatest quality of them is that they had understanding of the times to know what Israel ought to do. And the Lord told us in Ephesians 5 that we should not be unwise. We should be people who have understanding of the times. Because if you have understanding of the times, the possibility of being in the center of the will of the Lord is further multiplied for you. If you don't understand the times, you can be doing the wrong thing. You can be engaged in the wrong activity. You can have the wrong priorities. And so the Lord wanted us to share with you what is going on. What is it that has been going on? On Thursday, I share with those who were listening that if you are in the spirit, things will happen, you will know. Because current affairs is history being fulfilled. Whenever history is being fulfilled, that's what they call current affairs, breaking news. It doesn't surprise the Lord, because these are things that were spoken in time past. As there are certain things the Lord wants us to be aware of and how they will fit in. Let me put it this way. The end time will not follow the pattern many people religiously are programmed to believe. If a religious mindset, for instance, you'll be thinking in terms of one sudden activity. But the Lord wants his saints to know that certain things will be happening. You may not seem to know how they fit in, but if you are in the spirit, you'll be able to connect them. And when you connect them, you're able to govern your life accordingly. And so certain things may happen and the average person will not understand, but those who the Lord will give the grace to study the word prayerfully and receive light from Holy Spirit, they can see the significance. For instance, the Azusa Street revival was not just a revival. I told you on Thursday, and those who have been listening to what the Lord has been saying for some years, it wasn't just a revival. There was a bigger issue before William Seymour came on the scene. There was the revival at Tofeka by people like William Parham, and there were many other revivals that are taking place in the Hebrides, in Ulster, in the one in Wales, all those revivals. But what was the difference of Azusa Street was that it marked the beginning of the end. Azusa Street, in a sense, was the fulfillment of what Peter spoke about. But then the end is not one event. The end is a series of events that if you get your bearing right, you begin to understand how they fit in. So the Azusa Street revival, for those who had cried about Africa being, lost totally and, not being in Elohim's program, Azusa Street marked when the Lord used a son of Africa, William Seymour, to fulfill Acts chapter 3, where Peter spoke about the times of restitution of all things. It was the beginning of that end. And because of that, if you now look at from 1906, you see that the world has been like a plane descending. The things Yeshua spoke about, there have been wars and rumors of wars. It was in that century that you had the First World War, you had the Second World War. It's in that century you had the rebirth of Israel. Israel was reborn just a generation after Azusa Street. Azusa Street was 1906. Israel was born 1948. Just 42 years later, one generation, Israel was reborn. It was after Azusa. Let me give you a quick recap of some of the dates that were significant. Azusa Street happened 1906. 1917, British soldiers led by General Allenby, conquered Jerusalem. It wasn't even a conquest. The Muslim Ottoman Turks that were trying to establish a pan-European empire up to Spain, they surrendered to General Allenby of Britain in 1917. He didn't even ride into Jerusalem on horseback. Being a man who was aware of the issues of the Bible, he opted to go into Jerusalem on his feet. The surrender of the mayor of Jerusalem to the British was actually to a cook who went to look for eggs. A cook from Hackney. He went to look for eggs. They needed eggs. And the mayor met him and said, listen, I want to surrender. He said, no, wait. And then called a superior officer. That one tried to pretend that he conquered. Eventually it came to the general. So this country, part of the reason why Elohim has been merciful to this country has to do with how this country was instrumental to Israel becoming part of a nation again. I'm going to come to that in a moment. So 1917, Jerusalem was recaptured from the Ottoman Turks. That marks effectively the end of the Ottoman Empire. And then what do you have again? By 1929, the Great Wall Street crash, the Great Depression, misery, suffering. Then you went on, before then, the World War I had started. World War I. After the Great Crash, the next thing was World War II. In the late 30s, right up to 1940, middle of 40s, World War II. In the same period, all the period after Azusa Street, three major things that concern the end of age happened. One of them is that the world, which established the League of Nations after the First World War, now established United Nations. One of the three potential legs of iron, feet of iron and clay. Then another establishment was from 1951 with the Schuman Declaration up till 1972, the process that led to the formation of the European Union happened. And it was a vital towards the fulfillment of the end of the age that the rump Roman Empire, the rump of it needed to be restored again. And so even what has happened with Brexit is all part of the process that Europe will not be coherent. There will be all kinds of mixture. Then the third thing that happened in that season is the United States of America, that was very much independent, out of the place. They were not part of the world. They were stayed in a part. They stayed on their own, in their own area. They were drawn into the world. With the First World War and the Second World War, America stepped up. And why is this important? Because between the EU, the United Nations, and America, between these three nations, one will fulfill, or combination of two, or all three will fulfill Daniel chapter 2. And I want you all to listen, as the Lord wants us to be aware of where we are now. And then, as we said, Israel became a nation. Again, it was because of this nation, United Kingdom, played a major role. The Balfour Declaration, whereby Lord Balfour, the Secretary of State, or Foreign Secretary as you call it now, wrote that famous letter that it will please His Majesty's government for the Jews to have a home of their own in Palestine. And so, from the year about 600 years before Jesus, Yeshua, was born, Israel was scattered across the world. Israel was in exile only 105 years in what is called the Hasmonean dynasty. After they defeated Antiochus Epiphanes, Israel that was all over the world was gathered together to fulfill the book of Ezekiel and Isaiah, that a nation shall be born again. And so Israel was born as a nation. Now you may say, how does it concern us in the last days? In the next few minutes, you see how it concerns us. The prophecies about the end times can never be fulfilled except a nation called Israel is sitting right there in the Middle East, as you will see. And so why the Lord wants to remind us these things is to make sure that we don't live carelessly. The worst thing to happen to a Christian is to go from church to hell. There'll be nothing worse. If your being part of the body of Yeshua does not make you to hunger for the head to return, something is wrong with you. If you are not yearning for the return of the King of Kings, of the head of the church, something is wrong with you. If you are so much filled with money, need, houses, what you get, that you have forgotten that he who went into a far country is going to return, something terrible has happened to you. It's not just backsliding, it's worse than backsliding. And so, men and brethren, I want you all to listen. If you listen to the Bible reading that you read in the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and men and brethren, listen. Even that same period, it was after Azusa Street that Jerusalem was recaptured again, 1967, Six-Day War. So major things that will affect the end of the age, they happened in the time after 1906. Why? 1906 Azusa Street was the beginning of the end of the age. And the Lord wants to remind us that we need to be people who are aware of the times. And so, where she read, let's go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. There's some things that Paul, by the Spirit, mentioned that will happen. He said we shouldn't be soon shaken in mind, verse 2, or be troubled, neither by spirit nor by word, or by the letters from us, as that day of Yeshua is at hand. Now, this was about those who were troubling the church in that dispensation, as if the day of the Lord had already happened. And Paul was trying to let them know how things will happen. Look at what he told them in verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means. For that day shall not come, that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first. Take note of that. A falling away first. Then he said something again, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called Elohim, or that is worshipped, so that he as Elohim, seated in the temple of Elohim, showing himself that is Elohim. Now there's something Paul wants to bring to our attention here. He said the end of the age, before the final end happens, there will be a number of things that will happen. And one of them is that there will be a falling away. We are going to see what this means. And then he says that the man of sin will be revealed. Now take note of that. It's not that day that the man of sin will come onto the earth. It's that day that the man of sin will be revealed. Take note of that. Reveal means unveil. In other words, whoever it is will be on earth and will not be known by anyone until a particular time and season. Amen. Now, he now began to say in verse 5, remember ye know that when I was yet with you, I told you these things, and now you know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. Verse 7, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. He says there's a mystery of iniquity is already at work, but it is restrained. He says evil is restrained by their work. And there have been disputes by theologians whether it means Holy Spirit is the one restraining the evil and then it will be taken away, but the majority of opinion is that it means the church presence. Because of the church, even some of you, you've seen it happen. You may be a junior staff, you are going towards somebody who is a senior staff, he's smoking, he sees you coming, he drops his smoke. You see some of those things. There's something about the divine presence in us that beats back evil. Okay, that glory, when it's on you, people will not do certain things in your presence because of the virtue of the Lord upon your life. Now it says that there be a restraint until it's taken out of the way, meaning if it's this latter interpretation, which is the church, there are certain things will not happen until the church is raptured. Now take note about the language he uses. Verse 8, he says, and then when it's taken out of the way, then shall that wicked be revealed. It be now revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. In other words, the Antichrist will continue until when Yeshua now comes. And that will be the battle where he'll be destroyed by Yeshua. Okay, verse 8, verse 9. So it's even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness, verse 10, of unrighteousness in them that perish. I want you to take note of this. It says, with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. Who are those that perish? Who are those that perish? Is it talking of unbelievers? No. It's talking about people who are in church and they are busy with politics. They are in church, they are not open to hear. They are not open to learn. They are in church and they take chances with the Lord. They are in church, they don't want to hear about the end time. There are places you go to for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. There is not one preaching on the end times, but there's 25 preachings on how you can get 12 homes, and how you can get your promotion and get your breakthrough. But the very thing that is the end of our faith is not preached at all. So it says there are certain things. Look at it well. And with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish. Why? Because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. Take note of this, that when people don't receive the love of the truth, they are simply consigning themselves to the opposite of truth. Truth will lead you to liberation. Truth will lead you to liberty. Truth will lead you to end in him. But when somebody's heart is caked, and that's what happens with the false theologies now. The false theologies that are drawing people's hearts away from the intensity of passionate love and pursuit of the kingdom. What it will do is it will draw people's heart and they'll come to this place that is describing. Look at verse 11. For this cause Elohim shall send them strong delusion. I want you to take note. Please make sure you mark your Bible. Elohim himself shall send to those Christians who don't want the truth. The Lord will send them strong what? Delusion. He didn't just say delusion. He said strong delusion. Why? That they should believe a lie. I want you to see this, men and brethren. Listen. He says when people don't want the truth that is in the Holy Bible, the truth that Holy Spirit is expositing to his body, the Lord will send them strong delusion. And the delusion will make them to believe the lie. And that's why you can see a preacher who can talk opposite of the Bible and doesn't feel it. There's no compunction. The conscience is caked. And so he can preach a lie. He can laugh at there are people laugh at holiness. They laugh at the end of the age messages, and all they want is what they think is a delusion. The Lord allows it. Now it says, verse 12, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. May this not be the portion of anyone. Amen. So the Lord wants me to share with you 3 of the signs that you need to be aware of. Remember what I said to you. The end of the age is not going to come just like, let's say just one drop of the heart. There will be a number of things happening. Those whose eyes are filled with the world are not going to see those things. The remnant will see them. And the remnant, in the course of their walk with the Lord will give them messages that will prepare them, because whatever fills your heart will drive your life. Whatever fills your heart will drive your life. If your heart is filled with eternity, you are going to be passionate in the earnestness of waiting for the Lord. And that waiting is not that you fold your hand and do nothing. It's that you are going to study the Bible. You are going to make the main things the main things. And when you are making the main things the main things, you know that you are in a good company. So what are the 3 things the Lord wants me to share with you today? Number 1 is a sign of the manifestation of the feet of iron and clay. It is a sign the Lord wants every Christian living in the world today to know that this sign is being fulfilled. Why is it important? It's important because it was prophesied about 2,700 years ago. Daniel, who served under Nebuchadnezzar, prophesied this one. I'm going to read you the prophecy about 2,700 years ago. And in these 2,700 years ago is in our time that is being fulfilled. And what is it? Daniel chapter 2 from verse 33. Let me remind you before we read it, that Nebuchadnezzar received a revelation from Elohim about the empires that rule the world from his time till the day Yeshua will return. Look at the wisdom of Elohim. He revealed to a hidden king who didn't know him. And the hidden king didn't know the interpretation. It fell on Daniel to interpret it for him. Let me remind you, if we use this bottle as a sign, it says, hey, the head of gold is a kingdom or empire of Babylon. Okay? And Babylon ruled, and after it says the chest and arms of silver is the empire of Medo-Persia. Now I want you to take note of something about the empires. The Babylonian empire was made up of the Chaldeans alone, one people group, homogeneous. It was gold. After it, the next empire was chest and arms of silver. 2 arms. Who are they? The Medes and the Persians, what we call the Medo-Persian Empire. And for 67 years or so, they ruled. Now, sorry, I'll give you the date sometime, some other time. The chest and arms of silver, they ruled the world. After that, the belly and thigh of bronze. The belly and thigh of bronze was that of Greece. You know about Alexander the Great. Before he died at the age of 33. But before he died, he had conquered up to India. It was a swift empire and brief empire. His kingdom was divided into 4 because he didn't have a son, and the 4 generals who served him, they all took a portion of the empire. Then after that, the feet of iron and clay. I mean, the legs of iron and clay. I mean, iron. The legs of iron. The legs of iron was the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire stamped out everything before and established its own. The Roman Empire had two legs. One, the leg of iron, number one, was the Roman military complex, the Roman administrative state. It had no competitor in the world. Then the left leg was the Roman religious system that came to pass in the 4th century that ruled the world. And listen to this, men and brethren. Those ones were before, the verses before. I'm now coming to the verse, the last one. Many church historians, they knew about the head of gold. They knew about the chest and arms of silver. They knew about the belly and thighs of bronze. They also knew about the leg of iron, the two legs of iron. The one that many church historians did not pay attention is that they felt that this part I'm going to tell you is the same as the leg. The answer is no, it is not the same. Now let's look at Daniel 2:33. His legs of iron, his feet, part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest still that a stone was cut without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and break them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the brass, the silver, the gold, broken to pieces, and became like the chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that no place was found for them. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Now this was what was told to Nebuchadnezzar. Let's see the interpretation. In verse 36, this is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation before the king. Then verse 41, and whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with merry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. And whereas thou sawest iron mixed with merry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. Now look at verse 44. And in the days of this king, take note, when this final world empire that is mixture of clay and iron, it says, in the days of those kings shall the Elohim of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Brothers and sisters, we are in this time of the fullness of manifestation of this kingdom. This is the kingdom that will signal the end of the end. And that's why the Lord wants to remind us of it. And there are three entities, as I was telling you before. Three entities qualify to be considered. One is the United Nations system. We have strong nations, we have weak nations, we have strong people that are monarchies, people that are democracies. They are part of United Nations. The second one is the European Union. We have nations that came out of communism, nations that have democracy all this time, and they are all, some are strong, some are weak, some need to migrate to England in order to make money to send home, and others are strong like England, like Germany, and some other ones. But the third possibility is that this will be speaking of the United States of America. And listen, if it is speaking of a nation, then America is the only nation on earth that fits the bill. Because in America, you have the various races of the world. Is the melting pot, but the melting pot is not working. There's not integration going on. So you have people who are white Americans, you have people who are black Americans, you have people who are Irish Americans, you have people who are Polish Americans, and they stay in their own cocoon. Yet one nation, but divided. You have ideological differences, conservatives and liberals, and the intensity of their mutual hatred is going to another level. And their political system is almost totally at a place you don't want to be. And so, if you look at all the issues about the nation, it now shows you that, listen, if he's talking about a nation that will rule the world, but instead of ruling the world as a homogeneous people, it will rule the world by, a situation where they are divided yet standing, because whether you like it or not, we're in an American world. I've told you before in this place, if you ever wore a jeans, that's an American world. You ever have an iPad, American world. You ever have an iPhone, American world. What are you talking about? The dollar is the only currency you can have anywhere in the world. You know that you can still go do business. In some places, even the dollar is what they ask you. Are you hearing me? And so we have a nation that is actually ruling the world today, but is not by the single conquest as in outward, but directly, or rather life of people. Whether you're talking about the media, everything today, if you were to listen to CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or any of the major networks, is American ruling the world. And so if you check this prophecy very well and look at how the nation has been structured, you know that the Lord is wise and sees the end from the beginning. So if it is so, then the question is this: if the nation or the United Nations or the EU is these things, it means that they have come to that place where the mixture is so prominent. How does it concern you? The Bible says in the days of those kings, it's in the time of that kingdom manifested in the earth realm that Yeshua will come like the stone without hands, cut from the mountain, to smash the to all the things of the earth realm, to set up the kingdom that will fill the whole earth. In other words, it's in our time. It's in our time that these things have happened. Before Azusa Street, America was isolated, was not involved with the world. It was drawn in because of its affinity to Europe. Okay, it's also in this time that the EU has come in. It's in this time the United Nations has come in, and all these things are happening, and Christians are too busy talking about bread and butter, talking about whose car is bigger than the other one, talking about promotion, breakthrough. These things are the things the Lord said will give to us by cause. It's our inheritance. We don't need to struggle about them. They are more important things the Lord said we should allow our minds to be rest upon. The Lord wants us to know how the end of the age is quietly coming. Now let's look at the second sign that the Lord wants us to consider. We're going to look at all of only three today. The second one is a sign of Israel and the coming false peace. The sign of Israel and the coming false peace. Now look at what the Bible says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Let's break down what that prophecy means. He said, when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes. What does it mean, my brethren? Listen to this. It's talking about a peace deal that is about to be unfolded. As a matter of fact, from everything I can sense in the spirit, I believe that the first outline of this peace deal is going to be offered to us, to humanity, sometime next year. Now, what is that peace? And for why would that peace be necessary? For this peace deal to be offered, it meant, number one, Israel needed to become a nation again. That happened in 1948. Number two, it meant Israel needed to be in trouble with its neighbors. And that happened the way Israel was founded. The Arabs refused to let Israel be. As a matter of fact, the day Israel was to be established, the day the British mandate was to be end, the government of Israel, led by David Ben-Gurion, declared independence the day before, the night before. And that's what saved Israel. Because as the British Union Jack was coming down, the Arab nations swarmed to take over Israel, to squash the new nation. But you know what? Since that day, war, crisis, confusion. Since that day, you all are familiar in the media about what's happening in Gaza, you know what's happening in West Bank, from time to time trouble. But listen to this, Israel needed to be in a state of war and crisis that will lead it to need a peace. Number three, Israel needed to have powerful friends who would invest in securing peace for it. And I believe that the powerful friends are coming into place. Now, these things, how do they concern you? The Bible has already told us that whenever they shall say, well, we now got the peace, the mother of all peace has been secured. It says there, you know that the sudden destruction that follows. In other words, whereas the world will be celebrating, the world will be anticipating this peace, those who are alive in the spirit, the Lord wants you to know, when you are seeing those things, you know we have moved to close to the end of the age. The question is, are you aware of the things happening in the world? Are you one of those Christians, you work Monday to Saturday, you finish your work, you take your overtime, you never have time to study, you never have time to study the Bible, you never have time to know about what current affairs is saying right now. You never know the people, the personalities that are doing certain things leading to these things that are in the Bible. If you're a Christian, you cannot afford to live that way. You cannot afford not to know the truth. At least there are a few papers and sources of information you can reliably receive some information on world affairs. If you have nothing, at least BBC is fairly reliable. The world recognizes that. The BBC is fairly apolitical. We know that there's a lot of leftist influence, people have said, but basically they make some effort to give balance. So, at least if you can just make sure you are not ignorant of some of the current matters that are coming. You may not take their slant, but if you are reading the same news, when you have the Holy Spirit in you and you are spiritual, you'll be able to know. So right now, Israel is close to a peace deal. When I'm talking about a peace deal, a lot of things are going in that way. If you don't know, listen to this, if you don't know, the last few years have been great for Israel. They've been great for Israel. Israel now has made friends among the Sunni nations. The Shiite nation of Iran is in trouble with America. This week, Iran will have imposition of sanctions that are designed to break the nation. So Israel is having a good time. If there's anything this time, say Israel, this cannot be better than now. But the Bible is saying that when you are seeing these things, you know that something is afoot. All right, so that is that one. Now listen to this. Let's look at the third sign The sign of the abomination which makes desolate. The sign of the abomination which makes desolate. In that place where we read in Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, it referenced the abomination of desolation. If you check very well, where we read, he talked about 2 Thessalonians. He says from verse 3, he talked about the man of sin, the son of perdition, who opposed and exalted himself above all that is called Elohim or that is worshipped, so that he as Elohim, seated in the temple of Elohim, showing himself to be Elohim. And this one, you tie it to Matthew chapter 24, where Yeshua said in verse 15, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by the prophet Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whoever readeth, let him understand. So both Daniel and Yeshua Jesus in the book of Matthew chapter 24 spoke about the abomination of desolation. Now let's see how it is working. The sign of the abomination which makes desolate. In Matthew 24:15, it tells us how Daniel's prophecy will be fulfilled. It tells us that when you see that sign, you know that we are there. Because it says in verse 21, for then shall there be great tribulation, such as not since the beginning of the world to this time. And except those days shall be shortened, there shall be no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be saved. Now, how is this prophecy being fulfilled? It is not yet fully fulfilled, but I'm just telling you how the process to its fulfillment. Number one, we needed to know that again, there will be nothing of this if there is no Israel. So Israel is now there. Number two, there will be nothing like this if Israel doesn't have proper relationship with some of its Muslim neighbors, especially the Sunni wing. The reason is that the king of Saudi Arabia is the one who is the keeper of the sanctuary of Islam. And so if he says, okay, yes, the Jews should have their temple so that there will be peace in the world, you know that is going to happen. If they remain in opposition, it's going to be difficult or problematic. So right now, Israel has excellent relationship. Some of the best friends of Israel right now are Sunni Muslim nations in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia now is excellent relationship with Israel. Qatar, some of those nations, some of the, I think UAE and all that, Israel has excellent relationship with them. Now, number three thing you need to know is they needed to have powerful friends. And last year, January, the Sanhedrin of Israel requested the two most powerful men in the world, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, to please sponsor for them a temple. We don't know. There's been no report whether they accepted it publicly. But those who know these two men believe that they have a soft spot for Israel. And a lot of things have happened that confirm that they have soft spot for Israel. So the third thing we need to know, as we said, number 14 rather, is the weakening of the Shiite bloc. And it's taking place right now. Iran, even from this week, Iran will be busy trying to defend itself, trying to see how to survive, that it won't have much time for the things it used to do across the world. And then the Shiite nation of Iraq is held by American hand is upholding it. The Shiite nations, something has turned around in the past 24 months that has made them not being the kind of strong, powerful bloc they used to be. And so it now leads to something that Israel needed to own Jerusalem before you can have a temple. In 1967, Israel recaptured Jerusalem. And last year, for the first time in history, since Israel was created, America officially has recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Meaning that they now have the legal right in Jerusalem to do what needs to be done, and what needs to be done is to build the temple. The only thing now is they are waiting. The people are just waiting for the right political environment. And if you know the speed at which things are happening across the world, that environment may come. For instance, last year, before anybody knew it, the edict to recognize Jerusalem had happened. Before you knew it, Jerusalem was recognized. The time of building the embassy, there was no embassy. You know what they did? They took a consulate, upgraded the security, and before you knew it, it had happened. So we are time when people are talking suddenly, they are talking about their personal wealth. But this is the time when prophecy is being fulfilled in suddenliness. So when things are happening this way, nobody knows what it may take. The way the world is now, all it may take is one single decision. Now, the people of Israel are not waiting for that decision. I told you here in this place about the Temple Institute. The Temple Institute that was established several years ago, it has prepared everything for the temple. Everything needed for the temple. They have done DNA testing to establish those that are from the Aaronic lineage. The Aaronic lineage. They've done DNA. They've identified somebody as a new high priest of Israel. They have sewn the dress he will wear, the cap, the ephod, everything has been sewn. The priests have been prepared. The Levites have been prepared. All those who serve have been prepared. Everything needed for the temple has been prepared. The menorah has been prepared. The oil for the menorah has been prepared. All that is being waited for is just one instruction, one decision, and the temple can be built in record time. I've told you here, Israel is a leader in prefabricated construction technology. If they want to put up that temple in 6 months, it will be there. And so that decision about doing or not doing is something nobody knows the day it will be given. Why is it important to observe things leading to the temple? Because that is a temple that the person that will be the Antichrist on the day, maybe the day they will dedicate it, we don't know. The day they will dedicate it or any other day, that person will enter that temple and will sit and say, I am the Savior of Israel. I am the God of Israel. That's what the Bible said in Daniel. That's what the Bible said in Daniel 9. That's what the Bible has said in Matthew 24. And Christians are sleeping. And all the things talking about end of the age are happening. What will distract you from the end of the age? What will distract you? Who would you blame? When the Bible has been written with such precision, prophecies have been made and they are unfolding in our time, and the Lord is saying, brethren, wake up. I like the way African Americans say it. African Americans say, stay woke. Somebody say, stay woke. That's one kind of pidgin English. It says, stay woke. And this is a time for the church to stay woke, brethren. All these things people are doing, and they are redefining the Bible. You go to some places, they say, oh no, our own is this. They are pursuing this, they are pursuing that. And people are taking the Bible out. People are cutting out specific provisions of the Bible that show us light. And Christians are loving it. And Christians are intermingling with sin as a lifestyle. And Christians live and do what they do. You see some preachers, all they do is attack holiness. That's their own. And people are cheering them on. I remember one preacher some years ago, his own was, he was attacking the divinity of Yeshua. He said, all these Christians preaching Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. That's why we have not taken over the world. Don't preach Jesus, preach the kingdom. He didn't know the kingdom. The king is not just, Yeshua is the center and circumference of the kingdom. Outside him, there's no kingdom. In him is the kingdom. Everything is about him, and this one thought he had a mandate from heaven to do everything to abuse Yeshua. Men and brethren, listen to this. The Lord wants us to know something. The time is short. This November we are in, the end of the age enters another stretch. Another stretch. In the prophetic calendar, certain things have been fulfilled neat and clean. Now another stretch has opened. In this stretch, listen, if you hate the Lord will allow you to hate him to the uttermost. You know the book of Hebrews. You know the book of Revelation. Let's see what the Lord says there, so that nobody will think that you can do guy for God, as they call it in Africa. They say somebody is doing guy. Some people are acting as if the Lord is in a competition with Satan and is competing for them. He's looking for membership. No, the Elohim of the whole universe is not looking for membership. The Elohim of the whole universe has simply offered us a pathway of reconciliation so that we can have a personal relationship with him. Look at Revelation chapter 22. Revelation chapter 22. Verse 11. So look at verse 10 and 11. And he said unto me, seal not the sayings of the prophecy of this book, for the time is at hand. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. He that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. Men and brethren, this is a time the Lord wants us to make some adjustments, wherever you may be. Number one, the Lord says, love not the world system. 1 John 2:15-17. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any love the Lord, the love of the Father is not in him. What is the love of the world? It tells us what the world is. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, the pride of life. If that defines what you are chasing, you know you are chasing the world. You are chasing the wind. A lot of people are chasing the world. The Lord said, love not the world. Number two, the Bible says, come out from among them and be separate. 2 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 14-18. The Lord says, the basis in which you shall be my sons and my daughters. Come out from among them. Come out among systems that hate him, that are opposed to him. Come out from religion and religiosity that has no power to make anyone righteous. Come out from everything that defiles and pollutes. The third thing the Lord wants us to do is to seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. He said it in Matthew 6. Seek ye first the kingdom and his righteousness. Come to that place. You need to be able to have a testimony. Just as you can have a testimony of your salvation, that you were once a sinner and the Lord saved you. You have a testimony, you encountered him. You are supposed to be able to give a definite testimony of the day, of the season in your life, when instead of living for yourself, something broke in you. Where your belly was ruling you, something broke and you are no longer living for your belly. You need to have a testimony of a time in your life where you laid your all at the cross, where you experienced the cross. The cross broke through you and you are no longer being bound by your flesh. Your flesh is not making decisions for you. You need to have a testimony of when you enthrone Yeshua as the sovereign ruler of your life, meaning that you gave him right of way to determine how you live, to determine your priorities, to determine the things you are passionate about. You need to have a testimony. There's no point going into a building, calling it church. We are church, brethren. It's not about the building. It's not about the organization you are part of. It's about coming to a place in your walk with the Lord where you know that you're surrendered all to him. Men and brethren, how long will the Lord make a demand on you? Yeshua said, I stand at the door and knock. Do you know that that church in Laodicea, the area where, Minister Kemi and Brother Abi and the children went, one of the churches there is called Laodicea. The epistle to the Colossians, Paul said, when you finish reading, also take it to the Colossians, to the Laodiceans. It was a church on fire for Yeshua. It was on fire. He knew him. But you know what happened? By the time Revelation 3:20 happened, Yeshua was no longer at the seat of their hearts. Listen to this. Just let me illustrate this way. They took that one in. They took worldly fashion in, knocked him out a little bit. They took immorality in, knocked him out a little bit. Took something, took this, took that, took this, took that, until Yeshua was no longer in the throne of their heart. When you go to Revelation chapter 3 verse 20, chapter 3 verse 20, Yeshua was now knocking. From being in the center of their heart, he was now outside. Is that what happened to the average Christian? You were once fervent for the Lord. You were on fire for the Lord. You could do anything for the Lord. And in your own lifetime, how old have you lived? How old have you lived? In your own lifetime, since you were born again, how many years ago? 30 years ago? 20 years ago? In only that period of time, from being one who was fervent for the Lord, the coldness of London has hit you. Cold has come. To pray, trouble. To make the Lord priority, trouble. Every day is about you. You are praying for 30 minutes, 25 minutes is about you. Give me. You alone. You, every day. What the Lord will do for you. And the Lord is saying, when will you give me your heart? My son, my daughter, give me your heart. I want your heart. It's my throne. I want to dwell on my throne. Men and brethren, there are many things we can talk about. But you know what? And the Lord is saying to us that we need to come to that place that where we really, truly consecrate our own to Him. Die the death of the old man. Come to that place where He can use us to do whatever He likes. Anytime. He determines what we pray about. He determines what we do. He determines our priority. And men and brethren, when you are here, number 4, you invest in the ministry of reconciliation. The Lord wants every one of us to know that He has made us instruments of reconciliation. When was the last time you consciously reached out to a sinner to share the love of Yeshua, to share the invitation to come and be part of the kingdom? We are told in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17 to 21, there's a ministry of reconciliation that the Lord has placed upon us. People say, I want to know my ministry. I want to know my ministry. The Lord says there is a primary ministry. It doesn't matter whether you be an apostle or prophet or evangelist or pastor or teacher. There's a primary ministry to everyone. We give it to everyone, the ministry of reconciliation. To lead people to Him. To reconcile the lost to Him. Is something that you need to do as a lifestyle. Number 5, we are called to make disciples of all nations. We are called to make disciples. Disciple is not just bring people to church. No, it's about a conscious decision to teach people the full truth, the whole counsel of Elohim. To the point where the truth begins to determine everything. The truth determines your lifestyle, your priorities. A lot of people have made themselves church folks and they don't want to shift away from church folkism. You're in church, but how far does the word rule your life? How far is the passion for the kingdom consuming you? How far is the zeal of the kingdom consuming you? We are not meant to be people who switch on church mode inside building. Then outside, we are flat, we are cold. We do whatever we want outside. Then we go into a building, we change mode. No! Who you are is who you are. Anywhere, anytime. In the day, in the night. Anywhere you find yourself. And the Lord says we need to come to that place so that we can be disciples of Yeshua who make disciples. That's our calling. We are disciple makers. And you need to move beyond even one person to begin to think about affecting whole communities, affecting nations. Men and brethren, you need to know part of why we're doing what we are doing across the world. And part of why the Lord said, don't outsource it to people who don't understand. Why we have to do those things is that there's a deliberate strategic mapping of the world. And deliberate strategic, yesterday, we're going to celebrate Zimbabwe here. One day, Pastor Miller, one day we'll do Zimbabwe Day. I received a report yesterday from a sister who had the word, just had even read 2 books just recently. He said one other person, Evangelist Molly, told her about this thing, and she said, listen, when I read the books, I discovered that my church is a social organization and I'm running for my life. I said, wow, somebody thousands of years, miles away, said by just reading the books, the description of church, she discovered she is in a social club. And say, thank the Lord. Now I know I'm going to join the next Global School of Ministry program in Zimbabwe. You see, when we get the report across the world, from Asia, from different nations of the earth, the other day, I was thinking, the people here have forgotten us now. Only a handful of people give us anything. So from nowhere, Dubai, somebody from Asia sent me a seed, about 106 something. I said, wow, from Asia. The thing that shocked me, he said, listen, he said, the word the Lord is using your Pastor Grace to send, they are very life. I mean, what the person said shocked me. I said, wow. So a day will come when people from across the world begin to bless us. It shall come to pass. It shall come to pass. When the Lord calls you to do his work. If you perish. Will you perish? The answer is no. Men and brethren, we got to be strategic. The nations of the earth. One person who is recovered for the Lord, one person who is discipled, can be the very instrument of turning a nation upside down. So we got to make disciples of all nations, so that the world can come under Yeshua's mantle. Amen. Number 6, we got to invest in caring for the most vulnerable in society. The most vulnerable. Orphans, widows, indigent people. We must deliberately invest. It has to be something you do with passion. And you do it not because you are looking for anybody to commend you. No. You do it because it's worth doing. Men and brethren, I want to say this to you. As a ministry here, we must be in that place where nobody here suffers alone. It doesn't matter. We're not here to judge people. We must respond to needs in the body as a lifestyle. The Lord will never allow a problem to come upon a congregation of people that is bigger than them. It's not possible. It's not possible. The Lord will never allow it to happen. And we must also remember that we are one family, one kingdom nation across the world. And so I want to thank the Father for those of you who have responded to what we are doing, Adopt an Orphan and Widow project. The Lord is just setting this up into a lovely kingdom assignment. And we are thankful to the Lord for those who, wherever they are, they want to be part of it. You'd have no idea the joy of seeing what happened on the faces of people. That last mission to Africa, 4 orphanages were adopted. The least of them got $200 to help to meet some of the needs. And each of them is going to be receiving a seed every month to make sure that the children eat. And I don't care how. The Lord had brought me to the place in my walk with him is that when it says this thing has to be done, we say, yes, sir, it is done. And I want to thank the Lord for those who are going to make it happen. As they are sending in their names and we are looking at it. We are looking at what the Lord is saying. Men and brethren, we are not doing anything exotic or special. It is the very heart of the Lord. The Lord says he who cares for the poor is lending to Elohim. He will repay. Why? He created them. And so if you meet a beggar on the road, please don't speak evil of that beggar. If you don't have to give, keep quiet. Don't abuse the beggar. Don't allow what you had in the media to make you to speak evil of the beggar. We got to live a life of compassion. Yeah, we must be like the good Samaritan. This is the time. And then number 7, we must study the word. We must study the word and apply the word. We must watch and pray. This is the season. Study the word. Watch. Pray. Be invested in things eternal. We got to know that where we are now, we are the time that all it takes for certain things to happen. There's something I will have shared with you, but the Lord says another time. And it's the power of a single event. How one single event can affect everything. It can upset everything. And so when you are living that life of watching and waiting and occupying your allotment, nothing will overtake you. Do you know something? The way the Lord has planned it, those who are righteous can never be overtaken. They will know the time. They know nobody knows the day, but they will have such a sensing, and their life will be so radiant by his grace that they will not be overtaken by the enemy. And men and brethren, that's why number 8, the Lord says to every one of us, be in expectation of his return. Be in expectation. Be in expectation of the day of the Lord. In the book of Hebrews 9:28, he said the Lord is coming for those who are earnest. Earnest means red hot, in expectancy. You are not joking. You know he will come. You are making adjustments because of that. You check your life from time to time. Is your heart as tender as it ought to be? Do you respond to pain and suffering the way it ought to be? Are you as compassionate as you ought to be? Are you able to forgive people who do you great evil? Who stab you in the back? Who speak evil of you? Who lie against you? Are you able to forgive them and still do them good? These are things you can use to check how much. It's not how many theologies you stuff in your head. Any truth that does not affect behavior is a religious thing. The purpose of truth is to transform our heart, renew our mind, change our perspectives, make you have the right priorities. It's time to have eye salve to know that the day of the Lord is coming close. Then we begin to live like people who believe so, who are living that way. We come to that place where we are not taken by surprise. We come to that place, men and brethren. The Father wants me to tell you, for you yourselves know perfectly. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 2. The day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. But the Lord says you will never be caught napping. We are not children of the night. We are children of the day. And the Lord said, make adjustments while there is time. Let's not participate in playing religion. Anywhere you are, there's a way you can live by the word and by Holy Spirit using you for his glory, that you don't mind whether it comes day or night. This Elohim is too much. His mercy is too much. Some of us were not qualified to even come close to the kingdom. The Lord's mercy brought us near. The Lord's mercy cleaned us up. You know, some of you thank the Lord for those of you who are great. You went from children's Sunday school. You went to youth Sunday school. You entered church school. Bless the Lord for you. For me, I was outside the kingdom 32 years. Almost 31 years plus before the Lord finally apprehended me. He had waited for me from 1968. The Lord began to, everything he orchestrated. He reminded me one day how he orchestrated all things. Oh, the mercy of the Lord. So when you see me, I seem to be crazy for the Lord. You know, to know where he who is forgiving much, he loves much. We're outside the kingdom. 31 years plus. Everything a man could be had been there. Everything. exposure to life, and the Lord arrested. And I want to say to you, what is holding you? Why is it difficult to release your heart to him? Why are you struggling with the Lord? The Lord is merciful. He's been waiting for too long. Let's rise up and call upon his name. The Lord says it's time to prepare. It's time to prepare for the lap. There's a lap that begins this week. There's a lap of history that begins this season. The Lord says it's time to prepare. Let's talk to the Lord. Let's call upon the name of the Lord, brethren. Let's not pray religion with him. Let's just call upon the Lord. Call upon the Lord. Don't be ashamed to call upon the Lord. Don't be ashamed. Don't be